These are the exact moments a catastrophic car failure collapses a $3 billion motorsport dream on live television. Fernando Alonso just abandoned the Bahrain testing track after being left completely stranded in his broken machine. Aston Martin entered the 2026 Formula One season carrying the heaviest expectations on the entire grid. Lawrence Stroll poured unbelievable amounts of money into a modern factory at Silverstone, demanding a championship-contending machine. The team poached the aerodynamics expert Adrian Newey straight from Red Bull Racing to design the brand-new AMR26 from scratch. Newey took total control as managing technical partner, promising a fresh philosophy for the new regulatory era. Fans fully expected the green cars to dominate the timing charts during the preseason testing sessions. The reality hit the paddock like a shockwave on the morning of February 12th. Development of the highly anticipated Challenger fell drastically behind schedule. Engineers waited endlessly for the team's custom wind tunnel to come online, pushing major design decisions back by months. This meant the AMR26 missed out on core correlation data during the European winter months. Mechanics frantically assembled the chassis just days before the initial Barcelona shakedown, forcing the team to skip required track time entirely. Everything hinged completely on the Bahrain test to prove the new design concept. Formula One teams rely heavily on these initial running days to iron out integration issues between the chassis and the power unit. Aston Martin took a massive gamble by switching to an exclusive works partnership with Honda for the 2026 engine regulations. The Japanese manufacturer built a custom hybrid system tailored specifically to Newey's extreme aerodynamic packaging demands. The combination sounded absolutely unbeatable on paper. Two massive heavyweights of the sport joining forces created a terrifying prospect for Ferrari and McLaren. The tension inside the garage remained high as the car finally rolled out of the pit lane for its installation lap. Engineers stared intently at the telemetry screens, desperately hoping the virtual simulations matched the physical reality of the desert circuit. The initial data immediately showed alarming discrepancies in downforce generation. The new reactive suspension geometry successfully created a mechanical floor seal against the track surface, generating massive downforce on the long straights. Trackside observers noted the car looked incredibly stiff over the curbs, violently bouncing the driver's helmet around the cockpit. Mechanics scrambled to adjust the suspension geometry, but the fundamental flaws ran far deeper than a simple setup change. The entire cooling architecture struggled to cope with the ambient temperatures, forcing the engine to run in a highly compromised state. This restricted the drivers from pushing anywhere near the actual limits of the car. The dream partnership rapidly devolved into a brutal engineering nightmare under the blazing Sakir sun. The problems officially started before the team even arrived in the Middle East. Formula One teams traditionally use the Barcelona shakedown as a safety net to catch basic operational failures. Aston Martin's validation period was heavily compromised because their wind tunnel only went online in mid-April, pushing major aerodynamic developments severely behind schedule. The team arrived late and only managed a brief 5-lap run on the final day before stopping on track. The team kept the AMR26 at their technology campus in Silverstone for final assembly and systems checks, completely changing their initial shipping plans. This severe delay meant the engineers flew blind into the most important test of the decade. The lack of baseline data placed immense pressure on the drivers to perform miracles immediately. The rest of the grid arrived with hundreds of kilometers already logged and analyzed. Red Bull and Mercedes spent most of the first morning sidelined in their garages with mechanical problems, while Aston Martin burned precious track time just making sure the wheels stayed attached. The operational chaos painted a grim picture of a team buckling under the weight of its own ambition. The true scale of the disaster became public knowledge during Lance Stroll's first major press briefing. Drivers usually protect their teams during testing, by offering vague comments about learning and gathering data. Stroll abandoned that PR playbook entirely and delivered a devastating reality check to the media pen. He stated flatly that the car lagged an astonishing 4.5 seconds behind the pace setters. In the highly competitive sport of Formula One, a 4-second gap places the car in a completely different racing category. The AMR26 behaved completely unpredictably under heavy braking, locking up at both ends of the car without any warning. GPS telemetry overlays showed the green car losing massive chunks of time on the straights and in slow corners, though it flowed beautifully through the high-speed sweeping corners, where Newey-designed cars traditionally excel. The drag penalty on the main straights made the car look like it dragged an invisible parachute. Rivals up and down the pit lane whispered about the shocking lack of speed coming from the Silverstone-based team. The entire paddock watched in disbelief as the situation deteriorated rapidly heading into Thursday's session. The technical breakdowns were multiplying exponentially with every single lap completed. Mechanics worked through the night on entirely empty stomachs just to fix the recurring suspension failures. If you want to keep tracking this massive engineering collapse and get the real story behind Formula One's biggest scandals, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we cover these breaking developments the second they happen. The team desperately needed a clean run to validate a frantic overnight setup change. Fernando Alonso strapped into the cockpit with a clear mandate to push the engine to its maximum qualifying modes. The resulting explosion of mechanical failures would alter the entire trajectory of their racing season. The atmosphere inside the team motorhome turned completely toxic by Wednesday afternoon. Adrian Newey called an emergency closed-door engineering debrief to address the mounting failures. Sources inside the room reported that the legendary designer skipped the usual corporate speech and delivered a remarkably blunt assessment of his own creation. He stared at the data readouts and stated directly that the entire package was failing. Newey acknowledged the severe challenges and compressed development timeline facing the team. This level of total transparency shocked the senior management team. The aerodynamic structures interacting with the front wing sent turbulent air directly into the floor tunnels, choking the car of required downforce. The custom-designed gearbox suffered from severe harmonic vibrations that threatened to shatter the casing. The tire degradation numbers looked completely unmanageable, even on the hardest compounds available. There was absolutely no finger-pointing at the drivers or the mechanics. The mastermind explicitly rejected the premise that his design philosophy was overly aggressive, stating that only time will tell if their direction was the right one. The chassis problems represented only half of the developing crisis. The highly anticipated reunion between Alonso and Honda quickly devolved into a mechanical nightmare of epic proportions. Observers noted that packaging a new power unit into tight aerodynamic envelopes historically risks immediate thermal management failures. Critics drew parallels to past designs where engines simply could not breathe properly inside incredibly shrink-wrapped side pods. Internal sensors screamed warnings about massive overheating after just 3 consecutive push laps. Engineers frantically cut extra cooling louvers into the pristine carbon fiber bodywork using hand tools right in the garage. This desperate measure ruined the carefully calculated aerodynamic flow over the rear wing, causing even more instability for the drivers. The hybrid energy recovery system completely failed to deploy its electrical power smoothly out of the slow traction zones. The sudden torque spikes destroyed the rear tires within minutes. The communication between the British chassis department and the Japanese engine engineers completely broke down under the intense pressure of the ticking clock. The absolute breaking point arrived on Sunday afternoon away from global broadcasting cameras. Lance Stroll attacked the braking zone at turn 11 when he lost control of the AMR26 and spun into the gravel. The Honda power unit suddenly spiked to maximum revs without any input from the throttle pedal. The violent mechanical jolt locked the rear axle, instantly sending the car spinning wildly toward the runoff area. The engine completely died before the car even stopped moving. Alonso sat stranded on the edge of the circuit as smoke billowed from the exhaust vents. The incident immediately triggered a red flag, temporarily pausing the testing session while recovery vehicles rushed to the scene. Track marshals wearing thick rubber safety gloves carefully approached the smoking chassis to ensure the hybrid battery system had not electrified the carbon frame. The sight of the two-time world champion staring defeated at his broken machine instantly became the defining image of the entire 2026 preseason. The emotional fallout from the engine failure shattered whatever morale remained inside the Aston Martin camp. Spanish television commentator Antonio Lobato accurately described the mood in the garage as complete and utter desolation. The mechanics dropped their tools and stared blankly at the floor as the broken chassis arrived back on a flatbed truck. Fernando Alonso climbed out of the recovery car, bypassed the engineering debrief entirely, and walked straight into his private driver room. The notoriously fiery champion did not yell or throw his helmet in frustration. He simply packed his personal bags and arranged immediate transport to the local airport. The team was forced to completely abandon the final day of testing, with Lance Stroll leaving the entire organization stunned. The sight of their star driver walking away from the track sent a devastating message to the entire motorsport world. The veteran racer realized instantly that the AMR-26 could not compete for race wins, and he refused to waste his time driving a fundamentally broken machine. The public relations disaster forced the engineering partners to formally explain the catastrophic breakdown. Honda issued a highly unusual emergency press release on Friday, detailing a major battery-related issue. Honda issued a statement explaining that a battery-related issue forced the car to stop and disrupted their run plan. The setbacks were officially attributed to various mechanical and battery-related issues, though the internal combustion engine itself was not permanently destroyed. The situation turned from bad to completely unrecoverable when the team checked their inventory of spare parts. Aston Martin brought precisely 0 backup battery packs to the Middle East due to the extensive manufacturing delays at the factory. A shortage of available power unit components meant the team was severely restricted to short stints, separated by long cooling intervals for the remainder of the test. The garage doors violently slammed shut on Friday morning, while the rest of the grid racked up thousands of valuable kilometers. The team missed out on 25% of their total allocated testing time in a single stroke. The utter collapse of the Aston Martin testing program carries massive ramifications for the entire 2026 Formula One World Championship. The team now enters the first race of the season completely blind to the actual race pace of their car. Engineers possess 0 reliable long-run data to help them understand how the tires will behave over a full Grand Prix distance. This lack of information practically guarantees terrible strategic decisions during the opening rounds of the calendar. The financial cost of this disaster extends far beyond the actual broken carbon fiber parts. The newly implemented cost cap strictly limits how much money a team can spend on development upgrades throughout the year. Aston Martin must now divert massive portions of their restricted budget just to fix the fundamental cooling and suspension flaws. This aggressive diversion of funds absolutely destroys their planned upgrade path for the European leg of the season. Rival teams will bring performance enhancements, while the Silverstone squad struggles just to make their car finish a race without catching fire. The reputational damage to Adrian Newey represents another completely unprecedented storyline. The design genius built his legendary status by perfectly interpreting sweeping rule changes better than anyone else in history. His failure to deliver a working concept out of the box shatters the aura of invincibility that surrounded his high-profile transfer from Red Bull. The pressure from Lawrence Stroll will multiply exponentially with every passing weekend that the car languishes at the back of the grid. The billionaire owner did not invest endless capital to watch his team fight with backmarkers for meaningless lower-tier points. The engineering department now faces a terrifying reality check from the boardroom. The most tragic element of this engineering failure centers entirely on Fernando Alonso. The Spanish veteran committed his final competitive racing years to this specific project based on massive promises of championship glory. He gambled his entire legacy on Newey and Honda delivering a masterpiece. His decision to abandon the test track speaks volumes about his current belief in the project. Alonso knows exactly how long it takes to turn a fundamentally flawed concept into a winning machine. The harsh reality dictates that the 2026 season might already be completely written off before the first set of red lights goes out. The team faces an impossible mountain to climb, and the internal politics will inevitably tear the organization apart if results do not arrive quickly. The clock is ticking mercilessly on a billion-dollar experiment that is currently burning to the ground in spectacular fashion. The most hyped partnership in modern motorsport history has crashed into a brick wall of reality. Whether Newey redesigns the entire car or Alonso simply regroups after leaving the test early, this disaster changes everything. Thanks for watching, and hit subscribe for more daily racing breakdown.